It's officially 11 o'clock Eastern, Friday mastermind time. So I want to get everybody interest peaked. We're going to talk a little bit about some exciting news from Zillow. I'll give you the exciting part. I'll give you the cautionary part, and I'm going to keep you on hold until 11:30 to go over that. As we start today, as I actually learned last week about the net sheet that so many of you've done, and I still am not sure that that's the best idea, but it was certainly opened my eyes on the seller side. I want to get some perspective from some experienced, successful participants today on what do you do on the buyer side when you're working with a client? Like, what's the unique factors that make you irresistible and doesn't bring price to the forefront? We have like 40 people on now. Maybe I'm not clear with that, but like, Dan, you're an analytical one. I don't know. I'm afraid to ask you because you'll probably sound just like me. But is there
Rob,
anyone that
I'll
go ahead?
Rob, I'll jump in. Hi, Rob. Hi, everyone. Good morning. I just got off a call with a client of mine that I met a couple of weeks ago. They flew in from Pennsylvania and they were on my call to-do list. And how I try to differentiate myself is to do more than what's expected. And they're very motivated cash buyers. They want to be in a particular community. They want a particular type of house, which is basically a courtyard house with that has a small pool. And she goes, "Oh, well, we're just sitting around waiting for a house to pop up." And I said to myself, "Well, that's no way to get a house in this market. If you're truly committed, I'm truly committed to go above and beyond and dig and see if I can find you something that's not on the MLS or it's coming soon." And we had discussed it. It is in a gated community, so I might have a bit of a challenge with door knocking, but I have no problem with calling people and seeing what I can do. So I feel that that was above and beyond. And he was really excited about that because he really wants to live in this community. So that's a service that I offer. And so that was my win today. I just finished that telephone call.
So, Lynn, if you can't door knock, what else differentiates you?
Well, I will dig and find their telephone numbers and I will call the sellers. I like being on the telephone and calling people and following up if I know that there is a way to get that property available to show it to them. I think we all have our superpowers. One of my superpowers is I'm relentless. So if I know that somebody is truly committed, I'm committed with them.
I see Robert, I was going to call on you.
No, I can do it.
I promise you, I wasn't after the fact saying that. So what else can we do here, Robert?
So, one of the things that I've done in the past is really listen to my buyers for more than just to hear 4 bedrooms, 3 baths with a nice yard, more about their life and their lifestyle and what's really important to them and try to work from that. And I'll just give you a very quick example. I had buyers who came to me and said, this is definitely what we want. We want this type of house in this town for this much money, this side. If you can't find that, we're not interested. So I did find them that house, and we made an offer on it, and it was accepted, and we went all the way through inspections, and then there was a problem that the seller wasn't willing to deal with, and they canceled the deal, and they were very upset. And then I started thinking about all the conversations I had had with this buyer, and I went to a broker open house in the next town for a house that was totally different in appearance from what they had told me they wanted. And I just looked at it and said, they're going to love this house. It took me 2 weeks to convince them to give me a half hour so I could show it to them. But when we walked inside the house, within the first 15 minutes, they both turned to me and said, wow, this is where we want to live. And they've been living there now for 13 years. And they now refer to it as their forever home. And it was just because it was a very grand house, very open. He had been an orphan. He had put himself through school. He'd become a senior vice president of a major pharmaceutical company in this country, and he just felt that he deserved a special type of house.
So what you're saying, Robert, is you kind of expanded beyond what they told you, and you were successful because you kind of had that, I'll call it a sixth sense about what would be ideal for them. And that's
Correct.
kind of next level than just checking the boxes. I was coming to you for something different,
Okay.
but I'm glad I might get too far out of you. You're not a door knocking person, right?
No.
You're probably not even really a cold call person, are you?
No.
Not really, right? So, Robert, if the inventory doesn't exist and you don't want to go door knock and you're not a cold caller, what else could you do?
So, I've always, through the years that I was managing, always told my agents that they should be friends with other agents, and learn from them and work with them and create an atmosphere where those other agents are looking to do business with you because of your style and your acuity. I had an instance where I had a buyer who wanted a house in a certain town at a certain price point, and there wasn't anything on the market. So I called an agent from another company who I was very friendly with, and I had done, some business with in the past. And I told him, hey, hey, Tony, do you have a house like this? Because I've got a cash buyer who's ready to go. And he said to me, he said, well, first of all, since you really helped me out on one of your deals that I was buying, I'm going to help you out in that I'm on my way right now to a listing appointment for the house that you're describing to me. And when I get the listing, and I love the fact that he said, and not if I get the listing, but when I get the listing, I'm going to call you and I'm going to get you in before we put it on the market.
So, team, this is being solution based, right, Robert?
Right.
You're focused on getting the problem solved. What I can suggest to you, even if you're newer, even if you're in an area where you don't know all the agents like Robert does, and even if you didn't help somebody, here's a news flash, okay? If you looked at all the homes that sold in the past 12 months or 24 months, right? And you called all the agents that sold houses in the past 24 months, what percentage of the upcoming listings you think will be listed by the people that sold something in that area in the past 24 months? Probably 60, 70%, right? So if you're not a cold caller, it's not hard to call people in the industry and say, hey, Robert, I wanted to congratulate you on that sale that you had here. And by the way, I see you did 3 in this neighborhood. I'm just curious. Do you have anything coming on? Right? Worst thing that happens is you make an ally in the business, right? The best case that happens is, hey, I know this property is coming on in about 2.5 weeks. I'll keep you in mind, right? Now, is that hard? Is that cold calling when you're calling colleagues? Hell no, right? That's smart business. Okay, but most of us are so caught up into technology that we forget that, we can use the technology in not so obvious ways. Okay. So I'm totally solution based here. I'm trying to find a way to solve the problem for the client. And here are some extra tools that you can use to differentiate yourself. Okay. And sometimes when we talk to clients, it would be helpful if we identified what we're willing to do for them because they don't think we do that, do they? They think we just show up, open a door, and say, 3%, please. Can I get my commission? Right? Does anybody raise your hand if you think that the public does not know everything that we do to help a successful transaction? Right? And is it pompous and arrogant to properly explain to them all the depths that we're going to go through to help them have a satisfactory transaction? No, it's not. And to be honest with you, it's probably some level of malpractice if we don't share that with them, right? Because if we don't do that, they might go to an open house or talk to somebody else, not being able to identify the difference between what we do and what they do, right? Another degree of separation that I see that sometimes agents don't do and is an opportunity for us to have a real differentiation is go through the critical components of properties in the area that you're selling, okay? And this is specifically unique to different areas. I know when I was in Is there anybody on from Vero Beach here? So when I went on a listing appointment in Vero Beach, I learned that for some reason, the water in Vero Beach corrodes the solder on copper pipes, and a lot of newer homes have to have their pipes replaced. I had never even heard of that. I've been in the business a very, very long time. Okay, so there's a lot of these nuances that you can identify and you can help somebody. Somebody coming from New Jersey to buy a place in Vero Beach is going to have no clue about what that is. And, when our agent from Vero says, hey, Robert, when we look here, we got to be careful and see if they've upgraded the plumbing because here's what's been going on. Here's the problems that you can expect, right? I mean, all these nuances. And when you go to show a house, if it's in Florida, does it have wind mitigation? If it's in Texas, does it have this? If it's in New Jersey, is it prone to radon or flooding or wet basement or cracks or whatever? Talk about like not just the livability of it, but talk about like the maintenance and the functionality of it and how you can help them make the right choice for those reasons, right? Like who talks about construction and like the plumbing, the mechanical services, the age of things? Who discusses that before you even take a buyer out? Anybody?
Well, we in Florida, like you brought up the wind mitt, we have to talk about it because ACs, water heaters, and roofs are the one thing that like kills a deal. So we're having that conversation in the initial discussion before we even start doing the search. So I think it's important that whatever your market is and what affects your market or what affects your deals, that you're discussing that because that also shows your value.
Right. And Jason, how do you talk about like things that are, I guess, approaching the end of their useful life, but not in need of replacement?
Well, roof's probably the easiest one. On as a general rule of thumb, if it's less than 15 years old, it's probably going to pass as far as the general, inspection criteria. Once you get somewhere between 15 and 18, it's a gray area. Really above 18, there's not too many insurance companies that'll take them. And I can literally say that. And depending on what the age or what we're discussing right away, that look, if it gets in that gray area, most likely as part of the offer, we're going to put that as part of the offer, that roof needs to be replaced because we're showing that we want to protect you, we want to get you the lowest premium, but also there's a very likely chance we can't get an insurance company to underwrite that property in general. So that's a good example. ACs are another one. Pretty much if it's less than 25 years, it probably is okay if it's functioning. And then water heaters, 10 years if it's inside the home, 15 years if it's in the garage or outside in an outside structure is the rule of thumb for most insurance companies. So we just explained that up front.
So, do you talk about, when you make an offer, if the water heater is functioning, but it's 11 years old, that we probably can't get it replaced or a credit, maybe we buy a warranty and talk about all those practical things up front?
So for our market, realistically, so let's go the 10 years if it's inside. So an older home, it's physically inside the house. We know out of the gate that insurance is going to be near to impossible. We're going to explain to the buyer, I'm going to write it in the offer to have that water heater replaced prior to close. And if we get to the stage where they have the money, there's ways that we can bind the insurance, have it, replaced immediately after close, because it has nothing to do with the home warranty as far as functionality. It has more to do with flat out age. The insurance company is going to knock it out and say, no, either you replace or we're dropping you. So we try to make sure that we have methods to get that where they're not getting dropped in their insurance. But we do the home warranty thing. There are other things if you want to talk about home warranty that things are functioning, but we want to make sure you're protected. But yeah, age is on insurance stuff is important.
So I'm learning this now because for our New Jersey folks, if you have a 15-year-old water heater that's functioning, that's exceeded its useful life, most of our home sellers, we're going to say it's not broken. We're not going to do anything, and we get away with that. Bedona, Robert, Fran, would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
Now, what you're saying is in Florida, if it's something that's an insurability issue, you might say, hey, seller, you need to replace this so we can get insurance, or set the expectation for the buyer that within the next 30 days, they're going to have to address that, right?
So, and again, because we're in the Panhandle, a lot of our loans are based on government funded. You know, a lot of people don't have a huge amount of funds in the bank. We're talking about a lot of military. So we get away with it because, hey, if they don't have the money, you know, to be able to do a lot of closing cost concessions and what, we write it in and get it replaced because we know that even after close, they're not going to have the funding to be able to do it. But there are insurance companies that we can delay turning in the 4 point and win mitt, where we get it done the first week, we get it, you know, re-inspected. If we know that the client has a lot of money, that's one option, but realistically, I would say 9 out of 10 offers we write, actually just negotiated one. Ironically, it was a 13-year-old roof. However, during Hurricane Sally, and I felt so bad for the sellers, but we had the buyers, so I'm like looking out for them. During Hurricane Sally, roofers came out and said, "Look, your ridge vent, you know, was blown off. It's going to allow water in. We don't have that shingle color, but we'll replace it with something to make sure that you don't have water intrusion." So they said, fine, just, you know, we want to secure the house. Completely different color shingle. And every insurance company we sent that 4 point to said they're going to get denied day one because they're seeing a patch. So they're going to have to replace that roof that's only about 13 and a half years old. So we negotiated where they were going to split the cost. They're going to put the funds in escrow, about half the money. The buyers have a little bit of money, so they're getting a brand new roof for about half the cost of what it would be for a brand new one in 2 years.
I guess what I'm trying to identify here is a fair amount of your buyers are out of the area, correct?
Probably about 30 to 40% are out of state
Right.
or out of
So,
the area.
so it's a fair amount. It's not
Yeah,
the majority, but a fair amount.
yeah.
So at that early conversation, Jason, having the conversation to share with them what's unique about buying a house in the Panhandle
Mhm.
is extremely valuable. I would suggest most of your colleagues probably don't have that conversation until the problem arises.
Oh, you know, our first interaction, I've said it on one of these that we do a 7 step process that we explain in 2.5 minutes, every stage that we're going to do. And if we stop at one stage, like when we're talking about showing right to going to contract, we're going to identify the issues that we need to address within the contract. But we're telling them in 2.5 minutes to get them to have a conversation, sit down, or at least get our brokerage agreement signed to get them to the lender. In the end of that 2.5 minutes, they know that we've said more in that time than any other agent has said to them, period, is what shows our value and what we're able to demand. But then we take it a step further is when we get to that stage, okay, here's the things we're going to look at. And the first showing we do, here's the 3 things that I'm seeing. Here's the 5 things that I'm seeing. And they start to understand that I'm looking at things to help protect them. They need to, do I love this house? I'm going to figure out a way to get them this house. So yes.
I'm almost inspired, Jason, by where this conversation is going, is to have a standalone um, Zoom meeting for people who want to do role plays on what that conversation looks like in different markets, right? Because that will be informative for us all because it differentiates us from the competition. It makes us unique, right? And you build a stronger relationship than just opening doors. And I think that, everybody and unfortunately, most of the people on this call are the people that don't need it as much as the rest of the people who don't have time to be on these calls. But differentiating ourselves means that price is becoming less of an issue, right? And I know we're not, I know we don't price fix, but Jason, what's your standard, or what do you normally say my fee is when you talk to a buyer at the
We all,
outset?
so as a buyer, when we get to that stage, so you know, the first part of our discussion is, you know, we're going to go through the 7 steps it takes to buy a home in this market. We're first going to talk about our brokerage agreement, what that allows me to do, how I'm able to, you know, negotiate on your behalf, what we charge. We charge a nominal 3%. We don't charge any additional fees. That's built into the contract. And then we're going to discuss how we're going to get that paid when we get to the contract phase, trying to make sure that it's less money out of pocket. That is literally what we say in the beginning, and we move on to the next thing.
And Jason, do you do a transaction fee as well?
We do not.
Okay. I think
I mean, I guess we could. They probably pay it. We just don't.
right, but I think as we look at the process, right, and I really feel like if you could borrow my language here, I find that this is really empowering. It's like, Jason, I want to talk to you about what the process is for buying in the Panhandle. Even if you bought before, I want to share with you what the bundle of services that I provide are. It's going to take me about 12 minutes, 15, whatever that time is. And at the end of the conversation, we'll decide if that we're a good fit to work together. Now, if you control the conversation, you identify everything that you do. Number one, it makes the process easier because if you don't talk about what happens if the roof is 18 years old until they're under contract or they find the house that they love, will there be more or less stress at that point?
Generally, I would agree there would be more with one exception. I think what we do is when we have a conversation about, the process, we always say we're not going to make a problem into one until it becomes one, and then we're going to not only deal with the problem, we're going to have solution-based, models to understand that we already have an answer to what the problem is. In fact, we already know what the age of the roof is because we go into public records, we look at that's our process on our team, in fact, in our brokerage. But if there is an issue, my favorite one is termites. Homes in Florida, there's two types of homes in Florida, homes that have termites and homes that will have termites. So if termites come, guess what? It's most of it is a easy fix. It's a treatment, it's a repair. You would never even know they're there. If they're there and I don't seem panicked, you don't need to
Right.
be panicked. We're going to have a solution.
Right. But I always feel like if you identify, the process up front, and if they're not willing to listen to the process, I think that you're not in rapport, right? You haven't been in control of the conversation. And
100%.
those are the people that spin you around and then wind up buying without you. So,
100%.
you know, and like just the body language when you talk, Jason, about how you have that conversation, to me tells me that even just talking to your peers about it, you get into the zone, right? But
Try.
that's no, but that's truly, that's empowering because people feel that, right? You're not in a sales pitch. You're educating them on how the process goes. And when you tell them how it goes, when you come across, like when you say to me, there's homes in Florida that have termites or will have termites, right? You just set an expectation for me. So that if there's a termite infestation, I know that this is a process, right? It's part of the game.
Termite bonds are worth their weight in gold.
So this is something that I would really figure out. How do you differentiate, Robert, Jason, Cindy, Howard, Fran, Terry? Like, how do we differentiate? Lynn, how do you differentiate yourself from the competition? And we have that conversation up front so that the buying process is more predictable. If somebody came to any of us here and said, I'm here for 3 days, I need to buy a house. How many of us on this call think that we're going to not be successful finding them a satisfactory house in 3 days? Every one of
I'll
us
have them
is,
under contract tomorrow.
right? Everyone knows that we can do that, right? So if we had that same confidence with everybody that we engage with, right? And say, look, Jason, I'm not sure where you are in the process. If you needed to find a house this weekend, I can tell you that I have a process for doing that. If you had up to 2 weeks, we have a little bit of a more relaxed process, but I want to ask you a series of questions so I help identify the right property for you. Just that sentence or two sentences is going to differentiate me from 90 to 95% of the other agents out there who are order takers, right?
I think also giving them the sense that you've got their back. I mean, somebody calls me and it happens all the time, especially with military. Hey, I just got orders. We need to be there in a week. Okay, I got you. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to go over a lot of this on this call so that we can get through the first stages and get you to a lender and get the process started. But I promise you, if you follow what we're going to tell you, we're going to make this happen, and I know we're going to be able to find you something in that time frame. I think just being able to say something to that effect gives them the peace of mind they called the right person that is looking out for their interest.
Right. If I went to a dentist and they didn't tell me exactly what he was doing with the dental procedure, I'd find another dentist. And if we're in real estate and we can't tell them exactly how the procedure goes, I don't know that we've earned the right to get that business. And I don't mean to be, coy about it, but if somebody has a need, we ought to be able to be the person that gives them the direction, the certainty. And sometimes we conflate, being obedient to following their crazy, whims, right? In other words, we have the process here. If you can sit and listen to me for 15 minutes or 10 minutes, let me talk to you about like what the process looks like. Let me tell you about some of the things that we might come across during the process, and here's how we get through those, right? Because if you don't talk about termites and then they find out that there's termites, they might think that you're just trying to make a sale, right?
You've
But if you talk about
forgotten
that
your
in
phone.
advance every single time, then it's not an issue. Okay. And if you talk about, if somebody's been looking for houses for 6 months, I might question them and say, hey, Jason, are you sure you're committed to buying? Because, and let them convince me that they're, and let them tell me why they felt uncomfortable. And then you can say what you do differently, to provide a quicker solution to that, right? Because unless there's a really, really unique house that they need, looking for 6 months means that you have a lack of clarity or a lack of commitment. Would you all agree with that?
Mhm.
Right? And getting them to identify what they want and telling them that there's a process for that. All right. You know, have you called other agents, Jason, in a community where somebody wants to be if there was no inventory? Have you done that
I've
task?
I've called a few, but honestly, what I was going to say is where we blend procedures and systems with technology. Every time we go to a networking event or what, I mean, I know that people on this call have gotten emails from me when we're going to R4 or whatever, or speaking gigs or whatever. We actually have, because we do so few open houses, we've gone through the MLS and taken, the top, we'll say 5%, which is about somewhere between 150 and 250 agents, and we have a database of literally the luxury agents that are doing most of the volume. So if I've got something in an area, I know that they can't tell me something that's coming up, but we might send an email because we have it hashtagged in the CRM, says, hey, I got a buyer who's doing X. Here's the area they want to be in or the community. Anybody got something coming up? I don't need to know the exact address. I just need to know if it's coming up and when. And then also we'll go on social media and do the same thing. Hey, I got a buyer. Here's what they're looking for. A 3-2
So,
in this neighborhood. What do you got? And then I'll get people to reach out just to start a conversation. I know they can't, with clear cooperation, they can't tell me the address, but they can give me the roundabout time where it's coming available. So we'll do it, but we'll do it. Why we don't necessarily call. We shoot out the message, and we'll usually within 24 hours get somebody that'll respond.
but I mean, somebody could take a listing that's coming up and do a waiver of broker cooperation and say, I'll agree to cooperate with you on that one if you have a buyer that they know about. Um, at least in most states, you can do that.
It's
Um,
tricky in Florida. I mean, it's possible,
yeah,
but
I don't want
honestly,
to get too far. I don't want
yeah.
to go too far into that, Jason. But what I want to say is, let's just say that in a particular area, you called out to 10 agents, right?
Mhm.
And if they had nothing coming on, but all you did was build a better relationship, two buyers down the road, when you have a deal with that person that you had that conversation with, is it not going to be easier to get your deal accepted because you now have a good relationship with that person?
Oh,
And vice
absolutely.
versa, right? Because when you see a transaction, when you see a deal coming in from somebody that you have a relationship with and you build trust, right? And you have more certainty, it's not that you're playing favorites, but I know that Cindy Reddy is going to close this deal under the terms and conditions. She's not going to, like, that's good for your client that you know that, correct?
Mhm.
And even when I am, talking to clients, buyers up front, hey, did you know how important the reputation of the agent presenting the offer is? Did you know when I have listings many times, Jason, that agents will not even give me the courtesy of a phone call, they'll just send me an offer. And sometimes these offers aren't well constructed, that it could be a quality offer, but because the contract is written so poorly and they didn't make a call to plead their case, that offer is essentially disqualified by the seller, right?
Well, you also know the ones that will put the ego aside, tell me exactly what you need. We have a conversation, we figure out what the clients need, and we go figure it out. Like sometimes it's outrageous, but like I know that they're not the ones telling me this. I can go to my seller and say, look, this is what they're asking. It's not the agent. I'm going to tell you up front. The buyer, this is what they're doing. Where can we get to that we can make that happen? and they'll give me kind of the parameters and I'll figure out what we need to do. So those are always the easier ones because I know the person on the other side.
Okay, we're gonna take a timeout here. I'm gonna talk a little bit about, well, before I do this, who loves Zillow? Raise your hand.
I have a love-hate relationship with Zillow.
I
Okay,
have a
so
one finger up.
so we have 20% with unless that's 10%, Terry, out of 10 fingers, and we have love hate. So I have some exciting news, and I want to be transparent. And I want to tell you the good and the bad about it. Okay, whether you like Zillow, you dislike, you distrust, you trust, whether you like what's happening with pre-market listings or you don't, it's here. Okay, and Zillow is here. And dare I say, Zillow is too large to be ignored. And I commend RE/MAX leadership for making a decision to help its membership by giving us more options, right? Because I think more options are always better than less. So RE/MAX has done something. I think there's 3 points to what RE/MAX has done. Is RE/MAX has created a pathway for our brokerages to sign an agreement for pre-market properties to be able to be input into Zillow without being on the MLS. And I'm going to put a caveat subject to your MLS rules, right? So it's not a free-for-all open policy, but they're giving us a pathway where we didn't have one before to introduce pre-market listings into the market. Number two, they're going to be on the pre-market listings, and Donna, you can correct me because I might be conflating the premier listing with the showcase with the pre-market. But if you put a pre-market listing on, you will have a button for contact listing agent. Actually, there will be no co-op agent on the pre-market, correct, Donna?
So there's still some unknown questions. There is, but of course, the co-op broker wouldn't be able to show the property or build or, be able to show the property while it's in preview, whereas the listing agent can then build that relationship with the client reaching out directly. The benefit of this, and if you want me to stop, I can stop, but if you want me to finish this, is that the point of it is that you as the listing agent now has an opportunity to really get the buyer leads, and also the time that you have the listing on preview, and if it closes within the 90 days through a co-op, meaning a preferred buyer's agent, you do get a referral. And I think at this time it's 10%. And you do not have to be a preferred agent on Zillow to participate in this.
On the pre-listing, I'm not sure they're giving out leads to co-ops. I'm not sure. That to me is unclear.
On the preview, that's the huge advantage to preview is there's only one button and it's contact listing agent, and our name and phone number is below.
Okay, right.
Once it goes on regular distribution, like it always did, if you're a showcase, then there's 2 buttons. But whereas before, you had to kind of scroll down a Zillow listing to find the listing agent. On a showcase listing, there are 2 buttons together, one here, one here. One says schedule showing. That goes to a Zillow Flex agent, and the other one says contact listing agent. So if you're showcase, you should still get more buyer leads. But if we can take advantage of Zillow Preview, it should be awesome for us. We should get leads. And even my MLS, that is Stellar MLS, and they adhere to the, clear cooperation. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Fran. It's one business day. So I interpret that we can put it in on Friday morning, and we have until Monday morning to put it in the MLS. So we will get a whole weekend to be able to possibly get leads from Zillow Preview. I'm very excited about it.
So Fran,
I think the one caveat to that is if the feed, I think the feed has to come from the MLS. So the problem is exactly that. I don't think you can enter it separately in Zillow.
Yes,
a-
that's what that's what we're doing. We're
You can-
entering it
That's
separately
exactly-
as Zillow.
So Jason, I
That
believe
is
that,
right.
so Jason, I believe that now that's one of the big changes. And I had some people, Janet, did you have a comment on that? Cindy or Fran? I'm going to the senior specialist here of the MLS and boards.
Yeah, so you do have 24 hours before
No,
it gets
one business day, Fran, in Stellar
it
MLS.
depends on the MLS.
Yeah, ours is one business day.
Yeah, okay. It depends on the MLS, so we want to be cognizant of following the MLS rules for all of our associations or MLS memberships. So you do enter the listing and preview yourself, whatever you're allowed to do within that period of time. So, and you know, I haven't investigated how it works with one of ours, but I do know that you know, what opened the door for this was the NAR MLS policy for sellers. You know, it was the kind of the answer to clear cooperation that a lot of people were complaining about. So it can be done in most instances. You do have to enter it directly into Zillow yourself. Then you have to enter it into your MLS within the time period that you're required to do so.
All right, so warning is MLSs are going to have different rules. So if Jason's able to do something, doesn't mean Fran or Beth can do it. You have to be compliant with your local MLS. I'm going to just leave it at that. The last part is, and I want to finish this up so we can go back to the primary purpose of today. The last part of this is, if you've bought Showcase or if you've used the product Showcase before and you hadn't entered into a contract, your contract with our new agreement will be ripped up and you'll be given a discounted price of $150 to put a listing in as Showcase. I'm not here to sell Showcase. Adona and I, we invited some of our teams to look at that. We had like 35 or 40 people. Only one person was interested. So overwhelmingly, for $400, there was no interest in Showcase. Maybe at $150 without a contract, there might be use cases for that. My warning to everybody is that, Zillow behaves in predictable patterns. And what they're trying to do is get us addicted to using this product. Yeah. And I can tell you, have gone on listing appointments. If I made Showcase a big issue, then maybe my client might be interested in it, but I don't need Showcase to get a listing. If Showcase serves my client and it's a good $150 investment in my marketing for the property, I will do it. Zillow, in the way that they present it, make it seem like, Cindy, ready, if you don't do Showcase, then Trish Lehane will get all the listings because she pays the money for Showcase. I think that's absolutely absurd. Okay. I think it's absolutely ridiculously absurd. I think it's a tool that you might use. And I think everybody needs to be aware it's like smoking cigarettes. They're trying to get us addicted to it, and then they're going to raise the price.
Rob, I'm just going to end this. There's 4 trainings next week from Zillow. Reach out to your manager. I shared the links. You should all attend at least one of them, because even if you say, yeah, I'm not interested, I hate Zillow, you should still take 1 hour of your time next week to watch one of the trainings. They're going to show you how to use it, how to communicate it with your clients, both sellers and buyers. And I just want to say one thing, that during the preview, because I see some people taking notes, there is a request to tour a button, and that does go to a preferred agent. That's why it's important for you to do one of the trainings next week, so at least you are aware of it and you know how to communicate with your client. That's it.
And lastly, I'll just say that, Zillow is going to do what's best for Zillow, and we need to do what's best for us. Okay. And what we did is we made this a little bit less oppressive, and we give you some more tools to utilize your servicing of your sellers. But it's a double-edged sword, everybody. Okay.
They also introduced incredibly attractive pricing on Zillow Media Experts, I think it's called, media services, whatever, their photography packages.
right?
Uh,
So
And you have to have a
Beth,
Zillow.
I'm going to let everybody go back. If you are interested, I want you to go to the training. Okay, I don't want to give everything away here. Go to the training.
Good
If you're a
point.
full-time, look, if you're a full-time professional, okay, which everybody here is, Zillow can't be ignored, and I would go to the training because I don't want to hear bits and pieces of it.
I'm
So
going
if you
to
don't,
share the link, Rob, on the chat. So in case you don't want to wait for your manager to send it to you, I'm copying and pasting now. So you're more than welcome to sign up for one of the trainings.
yeah, I went a little bit over. I think it was a good dialogue. And I'm not endorsing Zillow. I'm just saying that they can't be ignored by the public. And I also am telling you that me and whatever I've been involved with helping anybody here, I am not feeling like if I promise somebody a showcase of their listing that I'm going to have a different outcome. Don't believe it. If it's a tool that will help me sell it or help me get a buyer, then I'm going to utilize it. If not, I'm not. So getting back to the buyer piece, you know, even if I'm like programming you and maybe you leave this session and say I really didn't hear anything that was earth shattering, you know, I had a comment from I don't know if Lisa Malservisi is on the call or not, but you know, I got into her head. You know, last weekend, Saturday before Easter, she sat in an open house. She's like, I'm going to do an open house because Rob got in my head.
I'm
And she
here.
just tell the story, Lisa.
Can you hear me?
Lucky Lisa.
So Tiffany Comunale, which is our colleague, asked me to do an open house for her on Easter weekend. And I said, yes, of course, I'll do it. I'll do it for you. And also Rob's obviously reminder, the two masterminds prior about how important it is to do open houses was ringing in my ear. So I said, yes, for sure. And I did the open house for her on Saturday. We had 19 families come through the door. So it was very successful. We got everybody's information. And then on my way packing up, I was pulling out my last sign, directional sign, and this car pulled up. And I'm thinking, first of all, I was a little worried, but then I saw it was one of the families that were at the open house. So I was very happy to see them. They came up to me, we started talking, and they loved the house. And I said, great, let's put in an offer. And they said, yes, let's do it. So, we discussed further. I went home right away and started putting the offer together, and we submitted it. I submitted it, and on Monday we were under contract for 900,000.
That's
So
great.
it's a great story. Frank and Seth are affiliates, even got the business, so it's a perfect story. And
Oh yes, right.
I think I've gotten into Lisa's head in terms of like, it's Easter weekend. Maybe instead of not doing an open house, maybe I'll put myself out there and do it. And I want to have that influence. I want to expand your thought process. And on top of that, to make things even better for Lisa, you have 2 buyers that you think are going to work with you, and I think you said 70. Your gut tells you 75% chance you're going to have another sale. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is that what you said?
Yes, that's what I said. Yes. So I'm working with 2 more.
900,000 with 1 under contract, and then 3/4 chance that you're going to have another $900,000 sale for what's 4 or 5 hours of work.
Yes.
Way to go, Lisa.
Thank you, Terry. And he came pre-approved already with another lender, but I told him we have an amazing lender, and so he was very open to working with Frank from Otto Mortgage. So he's doing the mortgage, and then Luxury Title is doing the title work. So yes, like Rob said, we're all in house now.
So Janet, instead of saying that's awesome, let's go back to your team and let's just keep talking about this, because I want to make a difference in helping people do more business and helping buyers have a better outcome. Okay, it's an absolute win-win, and thank you for sharing that with us, because I probably couldn't have done justice.
Can I add something?
Rob, if I can just harken back to a point earlier, there's an agent in the Montville office. Her name is Karen Dinkins. And several years back, she got a lead for a couple that were very specific in what they wanted. They told her the town, They told her the street they wanted to live on, and they told her the side of the street that they wanted to live on because it had a view of Manhattan. And there were no houses for sale there. But I believe she went out with you door knocking to that street. And in the course of the afternoon of door knocking, she found a couple there who agreed to let her show the house to this client of hers. And they end up making a deal for, I believe it was in the vicinity of $900,000 also.
As well, yeah. So, I'm not here like saying everybody needs to be a door knocker. Everybody needs to do whatever you're doing that works for you, okay? And I look at it from the perspective of, if I buy a lead on Zillow as an agent for 900,000, it's probably costing me $700 or $800, maybe more. And when I call those people, they probably don't even want to talk to me, right? They're shushing me off the phone. I gotta beg to have a conversation. When they come into my open house, I have a face to face, and if they like me or they don't like me, I know it because that's who I am. So I'm just trying to move the needle and try to have you think a little bit differently, and take off Wednesdays and Thursdays and work on a Sunday when go fishing where the fish are biting. Okay, take advantage of that. Meet with people. Okay,
Rob, can I add something about open houses?
sure.
The other 19 people, I mean, in 30 years, I've sold 2 homes in an open house. So freaking lucky Lisa, God bless her. But anyone who attends my open house, because even if you ask them to sign in, I mean, they'll put Mickey Mouse, Marilyn Monroe, whatever name they want to put down. But I make a flyer saying, not the house for you. I've got many others that might meet your approval. And I make them leave with that piece of paper with my card on it. So at least it's another possible way. And I've had calls from people saying, I was at your open house. That wasn't the house for me. I like the way you presented it, though. So maybe you can show us something different. So that's just another,
So to be
open
clear,
house additive.
So to be clear, you have done sales and you've also have shown houses to Mickey Mouse. I'm kidding.
Yes, pretty much.
No, but there's a solution to that, Terry, and that the solution is you sign them in yourself, right? Instead of when they scribble and say, "Hey, the owner would like everyone to sign in." That's very reasonable.
Yes, I've done both, but there's no guarantee they're giving you the right phone number, the right email address.
Well,
So at least I'm letting them take something away.
Right. I can tell you I have a nearly 100% accuracy when I sign them in myself. And I've gotten open houses out in St. Louis. I was out open houses helping agents and everybody signed in. I had Medi call people after the open house and the numbers were all good. So anyway, sometimes we need to get out of our own belief system because people will put Mickey Mouse unless you talk to them. And people don't understand the differentiators that we have. I will tell you that if I were sitting with a client and one of you, the vibe I'm putting out is I'm not there to make a sale. I am not a transactional.
Soup.
I am not a. Don't mute everybody. I'm not a transactional broker. I'm about relationships. I'm about building future sales. Okay. And if people knew that, and I really think it would be good, Cindy Reddy, if people knew that you weren't just here to make a commission, that you wanted to do such a great job that they would go out of their way to refer you, wouldn't they feel more comfortable working with you if they knew that that was the integrity that you had, that was the intent?
Absolutely. And many times I'll say to them that I've been in the business for 28 years and that I'm here to help clients and to build relationships. So I share that with them.
And I mean, part of it is saying it, Cindy, and part of it is them feeling it.
Exactly.
Okay?
Yeah.
And sometimes if I say, trust me, the last thing you do is trust me. But if they can feel the intent, right, and say, when this transaction is done, this is just the beginning of our relationship. This isn't the end, and you have to find your own voice so that people understand it. But everybody that's spending a Friday from 11 to 12 Eastern time, on a call, you're committed to your clients. And I want to give you techniques so that they understand what they're going to get when they decide to work with us, okay? And we shouldn't be ashamed to say, hey, the next step is we sign a buyer broker agreement. My fee is 3%. We charge a transaction fee. And you tell them exactly what it is, because you know they're getting a tremendous value by affiliating with the people who are investing their time in making themselves better. And you know, if you think you know everything, you know, that's the person I probably don't want to work with, because I'm always committed to learning. I learn from every time I help somebody. It's a gift, right? So other things that I would be talking about is when I work with buyers, and you know, Dan Gagnon and I are we have this disease which we're really thinking in terms of numbers, you know. And I would be saying, when we find a particular property, would it be helpful for you, Cindy, if I shared with you, based on the days on market, how other homes have behaved so that you can make an offer that both gets accepted without having to overpay?
Yes.
Now, who likes that? Who likes that sentence and that conversation? Does anybody besides Cindy and I? Or, and I think if you say that to them and say, hey, Vicky, you know, if you don't mind, what I'll do for you is when we find a property, you know, I'm going to go in, I'm going to look at how many days it's been on the market, and I'm going to share with you how other homes have traded based on being on a similar amount of days on market, so that A, you can be successful without overpaying. I think that's powerful, right? And that will give them confidence. And then if you want to really win them over and say, you know what, Vicky, I'm also going to do some research on the listing agent. I'm going to share with you how their listings have behaved, so we know if they're actually selling their listings for above the market or below the market. You know, we can use their trends to get a better value for yourself. And has anybody ever taken the listing agent's last 2 years of business and looked at what their list to sale price was, and looked at the list to sales price based upon the days on market? I only see Vicky and I are saying yes, but other people, you can do that and say, hey, would it be helpful to you, right? And I think most people would engage and say, yeah, that would be really helpful, because I almost guarantee, unless they've been out with Vicky or me, they probably have never had that before. Okay, and that's going to be a value added. And it's not a sales pitch. It's because we care. And at the end of the day, you know, they're going to recognize quality and value, right? And if you say my fee is 3 or 3.5 or 2, and whatever you're comfortable with, they will not question it. Once you put the value out there, I've not been in rapport, going through the process, telling them about what I do, and say, okay, the next step is we sign a buyer agency agreement. My buyer agency agreement's for 6 months. You know, we're going to talk about the entire state of Texas or New Jersey or Arizona, and my fee is 3% plus a transaction fee. I've never been in rapport with one of you and then had them say, oh, but can we do it for less? When you're in rapport, do they often question the price, or is it almost never?
Never.
It's almost never, right? But if you try to skip steps, or if you pitch up when you're talking to them and you don't believe it yourself, they're going to question it, right? If you say, are you okay with the 3% fee, or my fee is 3%, like, and you hesitate, they're going to question it every day. And it's not the client, it's the process that questions. It's not the client, it's the process. It's the way that we go about it. Okay. And somebody's damn fortunate to be working with you, and you ought to be able to identify the value and just say, hey, this is the price. Okay. You know, if you're hiring the best attorney for a matter, if you're hiring the best doctor, you're probably not negotiating price, because you see the quality, you see the outcome that you want. Okay. And you are a good value, because you are going to help them secure the house that you want. You're going to help them get it for the best possible price. You're going to be the advocate that they need for the entire process. Okay. And then the sale is just the natural next step. All right. I'm going to just take a quick look to make sure I didn't miss anything major. I know I'm running out of time, but I mean, talking to them about if the property's not there, how you can help them find additional properties that aren't yet on the market, and just be honest with what you do. Talk to them about whether the market is buyer, seller, or balanced. Educate them on what determines that. You can talk about, when you talk to other agents, like shadow inventory coming on, list to sale price we talked about, the listing agent performance, condition of property and making adjustments there for whatever offer you make. And in terms of doing that, sometimes you can say, hey, I'm aware of A, B, and C, and I won't be raising these in the inspection issue, or only if X. Offer strategy, talking to the listing agent, pre-offer call with the listing agent, data to justify your listing. How many of you have called and spoke to a listing agent and gotten some tremendously valuable information, or even gotten them to buy into an outcome before you even make the offer? I mean, I think really everybody's done that, right? Hey, Robert, what would it take to get this done? And you might say, well, they're looking for close to ask price, right? You don't need to go over, right? Or, they already turned down a full price offer. They're looking for a quick close and they want no inspection. Now, it doesn't mean that's what you have to give them, but it gives you some perspective, correct? And especially if you have relationships with these other agents, they might puff, but I don't think they're going to completely lie to us, right? If you have a relationship with people that you trust. So, please don't undersell ourselves. Understand that communication of the value proposition is probably as important or more important than the true value prop. Tricia, you have a comment?
I did. And that's why I applaud people that get involved in their association boards as well as Women's Council or RC, CRS, because you have that one-on-one and that person will do a good job if they write a contract on one of your properties.
And Tricia,
or vice versa.
I'm going to give a big shout out to you, but I would bet, and Cindy, you're a CRS agent too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you get an offer from another CRS agent, don't you have an elevated level of confidence of both their professionalism and the deal coming together? And it's not playing favorites. It's in the best interest of your client.
Correct.
Exactly.
And if you're a CRS and you're not telling your client that, you know what, I'm a certified residential specialist, I don't want you to give me accolades, but I just want to let you know that when people see that I'm a certified residential specialist, sometimes agents will understand and give priority to your offer. And, if we happen to get another CRS agent, they're going to understand my level of commitment, and they're going to give us priority because they know that I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do. Right?
Yep.
Well, and Kim Cameron spoke about this last week, about CRS, and we are the best of the best. And it's the only residential designation that you have to have a production level to get that designation. Plus, absolutely the best training.
So
it's like having a master's degree in real estate, to be honest.
Or even a PhD.
There you go.
So I hope even some of our platinum chairman, diamond participants here have picked up something that they can tangible that you can use in your business to help you serve your clients better, or to help you have better outcomes without having to chase people. It's the theory of attraction, right? If you can identify what you provide, then there's attraction. People aren't going to work with you only because you have a contract. They're going to work with you because they know they're going to get a better outcome because of the process that we do, right? And when you go there and you're like, if I say I'm not in it for the transaction, sometimes it's like the trust me thing, but people can feel that you are a relationship-based agent and that you're there to help them, and that the next natural step is for them to refer you because they want to refer friends to the best restaurant and the best services that they can find. And you're going to be the recipient of that referral. And that's how this game really works. That's how we scale the game. So everybody have a wonderful weekend. I hope it was valuable, and maybe invite a friend in your office or a colleague in a different office to attend our masterminds, because I just want to contribute and help you in a little bit like I did Lisa. So thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.